Ladies and gentlemen, on the latest edition of War of Week Boxing, we sit down with elite level ring announcer, the incomparable Thomas Treiber.
Rashawn Holdings proudly presents War Week Radio Chats with ring announcer Joseph Herring.
Woo! I tell you what, though, lately it's just been commentator. And I tell you what, it was a pleasure to always see this gentleman, one of the classiest individuals that you will ever meet in this business. Well, not just in this business, but in life itself. Guys, I had a pleasure to have once again on the show the incomparable Double T, Thomas Treiber. Thomas, how are you doing today, my brother?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me, Joe. Always fun.
I tell you what, man. Well, I tell you what, this past Saturday night, it was great catching up with you, man. And this was a club show. And I asked you immediately following the show, or maybe it was my little brother, Rob Gonzalez, young aspiring fighter out of San Antonio, Texas. He says, you know, you're on Riyadh season. In fact, an Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois coming up next month. You're going to be in front of possibly over 100,000 people, the biggest boxing event in attendance-wise in Wembley Stadium history. And you're in front of 3,500 in San Antonio. Why do you do this, Thomas?
Well, Joe, now I'm nervous after you've mentioned how many people will be at Wembley Stadium. No, I'm super excited about that event. This will be my second time getting to ring announce. My first was when Tyson Fury fought Dillian White, and we had 94,000 fans. And it sounds like we are going to possibly break that 94,000 fan record. So just very, very excited, very honored to be part of that event. But it was great seeing you this past Saturday, a local show here in my hometown now of San Antonio. Of course, I'm from the Chicago area originally. But great fights we had Saturday. And I'd like to keep busy. To answer your question, I like to keep busy and I like to stay, sharp. So the more shows I do, you don't like that. I don't want to have those, where I don't work for a month or 2 months and have a big show coming up. So for me, it's kind of like a boxer who goes to the gym to spar. So it's kind of like my sparring, if you will. But but I'll tell you, I always give 100%. I don't care if it's in front of 500 people or 100,000 people. I always give 100%, Joe.
Oh, that you do, brother. And that's what really stuck out to me the first time I ever saw you do one of these club gigs, is that even if the PA isn't what you're used to, like the one you did at BMO Stadium this past a couple weeks ago, right, in LA.
Yes.
Great job, by the way.
Thank you.
that sound system is state of the art. And then you do something like this, but it's still the same Thomas Treiber. It's almost like you're that McDonald's franchise of ring announcers.
Wow,
you know what you're gonna get. The product is always up to spec. So,
well, I try to do my very best every opportunity I get. I've always had that mentality, Joe, of there's always a boxing fan out there that is not familiar with you, someone who's never seen you before. So I always try to give 100%, and it's all about the fighters. It's about, presenting the fighters in the best way that I can. So I take it very seriously.
As you should, brother, because these fighters, as you know, boy, if you get anything wrong in announcing them, or don't pronounce something correctly, or forget to mention something, yeah, they get a little miffed because this is their career. They're taking it that seriously as well. So it's, I love the mindset. I love the professionalism. And you know what? You're quickly becoming, well, let's just face it, great Michael Buffer, legendary voice, legendary persona, and ambassador for boxing. And we see him at these Riyadh events, but he's limited to the main event of the evening. And because he's getting a little long in the tooth, God bless him. So is Jimmy Lennon Jr. They're limited to the amount of events that they can do per year. Unlike you are the gladiator, the road warrior, and you're quickly becoming the new elite of our beloved boxing. Has that hit you yet? Has that set in yet?
Well, I've heard this from a few people recently, and I very much appreciate the opportunities that I'm getting, because I know what it's like to sit at home and wait for my phone to ring and wish I was doing a certain event. So to be working these events in Saudi Arabia, and most recently in Los Angeles, the Riyadh season shows, which have been just absolutely incredible. I just feel very honored, and I'm just very thankful, and I hope it lasts for a long time. I love what I do, and it's always an honor to work with Michael Buffer. He is the ring announcer who I started to watch when I started ring announcing. So now, not only to be working with him, but we've become very good friends as well. I did undercards for Michael over 20 years ago for HBO shows. Mm-hmm. But we've done 5, 6 together in Saudi Arabia now. And now because we're at the same hotel typically, we have a chance to spend a little more quality time together. So I'm very thankful to have gotten to know Michael on a closer level. And he's helped me. He's given me some tips. And, it's just been a real honor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To be even mentioned in that same discussion is incredible. That's incredible. But this isn't just an overnight success story now, is it?
Well, I started, I'm 51 years old. I started doing this when I was 17, just outside Chicago in Hammond, Indiana, which is where I'm from. That's where I started my career as a ring announcer as a senior in high school, doing local events. And when I started, Joe, I never even thought about being a ring announcer on television. I never even thought about traveling as a ring announcer. I just thought it was something fun that I wanted to try because I was interested in getting into broadcasting. I was getting ready to go to broadcasting school, and I thought, well, ring announcing, boy, that would be just a fun way to get some experience behind a microphone. And as luck has it, 2 fighters from my hometown went to the same high school as me, Eric Jakubowski and his brother, Marty Jakubowski. And they were the ones that put me in touch with a local promoter. And I got my start locally. And eventually I started to travel and do television. And the rest is history, as they say. I'm very blessed to be doing what I do now and make a living at this.
Yeah, because, it's in any entertainment field, it almost feels like it's feast or famine, doesn't it?
It definitely can have its peaks and valleys, and you just got to continue to believe in yourself. And I never wanted to give up. I had to work, 2, 3 jobs sometimes, to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult at times to stay available, to travel, because, one of the things about being a ring announcer is if a show's on a Friday and it's out of town, that means you usually have to leave town on Thursday or maybe even Wednesday. When I was doing Showbox for all those years that I was involved in doing the great Showbox series on the Showtime Network, our shows were always on Fridays. And the Showtime Network would always require me to leave on Wednesday so that I was there for the weigh-in on Thursday, which sometimes was even early in the afternoon. So traveling in the same days of weigh-in just wasn't possible. So you really have to make that commitment of time. And most employers don't understand that you have to leave, out of town. And that could be a real hurdle for somebody who works at another job as a ring announcer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And look, yeah, you're the road warrior now, because it looks like coming up, I'm just looking at the schedule now. You're going to leave late September, right? Mid-September, and then mid-September, and then you're going to stay in the UK.
I am.
And you're going to go to Saudi. It looks like October 12th is the big event. Arthur Baturbia versus Dimitri Bivol.
Yes.
And then we've got on the undercard Shakur Stevenson versus Joe Cordina, Fabio Wardley versus Fraser Clark 2. That's going to be a war. Yeah, this is going to be wow. Yeah,
I've got quite a trip coming up here.
Yeah. So you've got the Anthony Joshua shows, a Queensbury show on its own, and then you're going to have to go to Saudi.
Well, Matchroom's involved as well. That's a big event for both Queensbury and Matchroom there at Wembley Stadium, of course. And yes, so after that event on September 21st, so I'll be leaving on September 15th for the UK, because for anyone who's been following our Riyadh season shows, it's a full week of buildup. We do what's called grand arrivals. And then we will do a media public workout the next day after that. Then we'll do the final press conference, and then we have the weigh-in, and then we'll have the show. So it's a full week of activities. So it requires me to be there for the full week. So I will be gone for leaving on the 15th of September. Then we've got the event on the 21st at Wembley Stadium. Then on September 25th, we're actually going to do a press conference in London for the Dimitri Bivol W.A.W event on October 12th in Saudi Arabia. So we'll be doing a special press conference for that. And then I'm just going to stay, because then we have a great event October 5th in Liverpool.
Yep. Nick Ball, Ronnie Rios. Woo!
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it's the homecoming for Nick Ball. And I couldn't be happier for him, a newly crowned world champion who, in my opinion, should have 2 world titles right now. But he will be defending his title for the first time in his hometown of Liverpool. So a really exciting time for the UK fans.
Yeah, I tell you what, this is, and dare I say, now, no offense, guys, and you know how much I love you guys in the chat, my extended family from Warwick Boxing. Hats off to you guys always, and I brag about you guys all the time, the most intelligent fight fans on the planet. But I will say this, the UK fight fans, they're amazing. They bring it. And, unlike fickle fans that you see on X or /Twitter, whatever you want to call it, even after a loss, they don't just throw you in the trash like hot garbage. They will stick by you through thick or thin, and they will ride that train till the wheels come off. Thomas, talk about your reception from the great fans of the UK.
Well, I've been very fortunate to be part of Queensbury Promotions now, going on 7 years next month.
Wow.
And I've been there, aside from, of course, when we were in the pandemic, I didn't work for about 4 or 5 months. I've been there every month since September of 2017. And one of the biggest things about boxing is the great fans in the UK. And they just really embrace the fights, the fighters. I mean, the fighters are like rock stars out there. I mean, and if you even win a British title, which is a great achievement, but the British champions in the UK, they get treated like they're a world champion. That's how much they respect the British title. That's how much they respect their fighters. So the enthusiasm, of course, the songs that they sing at the arenas and at the stadiums, it's making the hair on my arm stand up right now.
Love it. Love it.
It is just a great atmosphere. Not to say there aren't great fans here in the United States and all over the world, but it is certainly special in the UK.
You know, and what's amazing, and I love this about you, we talk all the time, and you can't turn it off anymore, can you? That that beautiful pronunciation, that velvety voice, and yeah, man, it's like that energy level. You can't. It's ingrained in your personality at this point now, isn't it?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe, I don't know what you're talking about. No, 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 do I talk like that all the time? No. You know, Joe.
Yeah, you know what's amazing, and guys, it was such a real treat for my little brother Rob Gonzalez, aspiring young fighter out of San Antonio, and he got so like energized when you started doing that, right in front of him, without the mic, without the stage, all of that, not in the ring. You just started doing that, and it almost gives you the impression of, you know, when you go see your favorite band live and they play their biggest hit song. That's the feeling that it gives you.
Wow.
And it's an amazing thing, brother. It's become almost iconic. Like I said, and you're a very humble guy. Um, how does that how do you deal with that, my friend?
Well, no, look,
That reception.
I mean, it's a great feeling to know that, you know, boxing fans are appreciating your work, appreciating your abilities. Look, I'm always learning. That's one of the things. You never want to have the attitude that, you know, oh, I'm so good that I don't need any advice or this or
Mm,
that. So I'm always trying to find ways to improve, and I know I can always be better. So, and just like
mhm.
any job out there, the more you do it, the better you're going to get. So, but whenever I do get people complimenting my work, it's greatly appreciated.
I tell you what, man, you deserve it, brother. You deserve it. And once again, man, it's not easy. It's not easy. And I tell you what's not going to be easy. And no pressure, brother. No pressure at all. But on September 21st, in front of possibly over 100,000 participants and spectators in Wembley Stadium. No pressure, Thomas.
Well, you know, Joe, my main thing whenever I do a show is preparation and being prepared, dotting all my
Hmm.
I's, crossing all my T's, making sure I've got my notes prepared, making sure I've memorized the lines I need to memorize. And it's just business as usual for me. I mean, whether there's 1,000 or 100,000 people out there, I just get focused in, Joe. You have to block that out. You can't focus on that. When the show's over, that's
Yep.
when you can sit back and maybe take it in a little more in that respect. But you know, you got to be focused on performing your job and not focused on anything that might be distracting. So don't get me wrong, I'm going to enjoy the enthusiasm. When we did, like I said earlier, when we did Tyson Fury versus Dillian White, I did take a moment to look out into the crowd at Wembley Stadium, and it really was awe-striking to see that many people. It just looked like an endless sea of people. So I'm really looking forward to being part of something like that again on September 21st.
Oh, it's going to be an amazing event, guys, and it's going to be available on pay-per-view, guys, via ESPN pay-per-view. I think as well as DAZN pay-per-view as well. That's going to be on September 21st. Anthony Joshua versus Triple D, Daniel Dynamite Dubois. And, you know, I know you don't like, because you have to announce the winner or the loser or announce the official verdict if there's a knockout. And in my opinion, I don't see how this goes the distance. But no, you don't like to make any predictions. But what are you expecting to see in that scheduled 12-round main event that's been circled on all of our calendar ever since Daniel Dubois got that big victory over Philip Ergovich as part of that 5-on-5 event in Saudi Arabia?
Well, Anthony Joshua's resume speaks for itself. All his accomplishments as heavyweight world champion. Now he gets an opportunity to win the IBF heavyweight championship. And for Daniel Dubois, he's had an interim title, but now an opportunity to win a real world title. So these are two guys that are coming off a couple of really good wins. They're feeling confident. I'm really happy for Daniel. to be in the situation he's in. I've been ring announcing his fights for 7 years. In fact, the very first show I ever did for Frank was at Copper Box Arena in London, and Dubois was on that undercard. And to see the way he has progressed, and he's had to deal with some setbacks, a couple of losses, one of them where, with Usyk, some question whether it was a low blow or not at one point in that fight. So I think we're going to see two guys in there going at it. What a great domestic showdown. Two fighters from England, two big heavyweight fighters. It's really a match made in heaven, and I'm just expecting to see those guys throwing some bombs out there, and it could be the winner could be the first guy who lands the big bomb.
Yep, very well could be. And yeah, both guys can crack. Both guys, we've seen them be vulnerable. I'll tell you what, that just makes for great drama now, doesn't it? And that's one of the reasons why we love the heavyweight division. Anything can and often does happen. That is the true theater of the unexpected, the heavyweight division, the glamour division. Do you still believe this? And do you think that's why Turki Al-Sheikh absolutely adores the heavyweight division? Because that old adage, as the heavyweight division goes, so goes boxing. Do you still believe that to this day?
I think historically, the heavyweight championship of the world has always had that extra level of attention or excitement to it. And yes, knowing that just one punch can, change the course of a fight. I mean, of course, that could happen in any weight division. But I think people like to see the big boys. I think if you talk to somebody who's not even a boxing fan and you say, hey, there's a strawweight world championship fight tonight, or there's a heavyweight world championship fight, which one do you think they'll be more interested in? So I think it attracts, I think the heavyweight division attracts people who are not typically boxing fans, where those lower weight divisions may not. So I'm just super excited for that event, and talking to you right now is just, getting me really excited about that. Sure.
Oh, and as you should. This is one you don't want to miss, guys. And once again, credit to Turki Al-Sheikh for once again understanding the importance of regional attractions and putting these fight cards in their appropriate region. Because could you imagine this fight card taking place anywhere else but Wembley Stadium in London, England?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a match made in heaven, a great domestic showdown, both fighters from England. And I think it's the perfect setup for it. And we have a great performance again, like we had Eminem in Los Angeles. We've got Oasis. I'm excited about that as well.
Woo! I tell you what, yeah, honestly, man, I just, well, it's another conversation. I'm a former musician. Well, I'm a musician, but I'm a former signed musician. And, yeah, I could go, this could be another entirely different podcast devoted to that. So we're not going to go into that, but I will say this though. Let's go to let's say hello to our dear friends in the chat, our extended War Week Radio family. And first one in the queue, our brother Alberto, my brother in Christ. God bless you and salute to you, my friend. And he says, salute and blessings, Joe. Also salute to Mr. Treiber, who has been killing it lately. He is now my second favorite ring announcer, only behind the classy Jimmy Lennon Jr.
Thank you, Alberto.
Well, look, what you didn't know, and I'm going to put you on the spot, brother. I don't know if you want to take advantage of this moment, but you guys know that I do somewhat a quasi poor man's version of Jimmy Lennon Jr. This guy does a much better Jimmy Lennon Jr. impression than I do. Would you care to give us a taste of that, man?
Well, you're really putting me on the spot, Joe, but I'll give it the old college try, if you will.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to you as we welcome you to a great night of boxing action live from the MGM Grand here in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Dude, that's incredible. Like your pronunciation changes, your cadence, it is the tone. You've got that down, brother. That is absolutely perfect, man. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Dude,
And Jimmy,
that's amazing.
And Jimmy, we were talking about Michael earlier, and Jimmy, of course, right there with the great Michael Buffer, Jimmy Lennon Jr., the classy, and he truly is classy. What a great guy. He's always, I'm honored to call him a friend and Michael Buffer a friend, and what careers they have had. And it's just an honor to even have my name mentioned on the same sentence with them.
Yep, nephew of the legendary Lennon sisters from back in the 50s. How do you like that?
That's right.
Yeah, most people don't realize Jimmy, just like his dad, is an excellent trained operatic singer. Yeah, brilliant voice. And boy, I tell you what, that is the best Jimmy Lennon impression I've ever heard, brother. That's amazing, bro. You got that down. It's almost like it's almost like my Lupe impression.
You do a very good Lupe Contreras, who's a good friend of mine as well.
Oh, Lupe is such a great guy and one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Once again, not just in this business, but in life. He is just a genuinely good guy. I love Lupe. Hecho en Mexico. But we'll save that for later. I tell you what, moving on to my brother Jesus M. Saludos to you, brother. And thank you for always supporting War Week Boxing. And thank you for being here for my brother Thomas. And Alberto, first question, my friend. He says, Thomas, are there any breathing exercises done beforehand when ring announcing? I can imagine the worst case scenario is having your voice crack. You mean like mine right now from having to scream for over 6 hours straight this past Saturday?
Well, I do get asked that question. And quite honestly, there's nothing I really do as far as drinking tea with honey or anything of that nature. Really, for me, I try to make sure I get a good night's rest before an event. I have kind of my routine of having breakfast, working on my notes, and working on my lines, memorizing my lines. But I've been very fortunate to never lose my voice in the ring. I was close one time where I was fighting some type of flu bug, and my voice was extremely raspy and not very strong. But really nothing I do in particular to strengthen my voice.
Yep. Well, look, and you hit the nail on the head, brother. And because I'm a singer as well, and I do commentary as well, and sleep, there's no substitute for plenty of rest and plenty of water.
And I think that's been the hardest part about the international work I've done is your body really gets thrown off. When we do our Saudi Arabia shows, that's 9 hours ahead of the time here in Texas where I currently live. And when I do my events in the UK, they're 6 hours ahead of me. So trying to, get that rest is very, very important, especially when you're fighting jet lag.
See, I was fortunate. The only times I've ever had assignments overseas is when I've been doing PR work or just covering an event for a periodical. And because when I suffer from jet lag, man, it will tear your ass to pieces. You've got to be able to get there at least a couple days before if you're expected to perform. And that's tough. It's like, even for a ring announcer, especially for fighters, you have to let your body at least get there in time to let your body get adjusted. So I'm glad you're doing the week of media events before the big day, so your body's somewhat adjusted to the time, right? Or do you stay in Central Time while you're there? How does that actually work?
I do try to stay as close as I can to US time. It kind of depends. With our shows in Saudi Arabia, our festivities, if you will, are usually in the evening around 9 p.m. And I usually have to be there at least 2 to 3 hours prior. We'll do rehearsals, mic checks, things like that. So on those days, I try to stick as close to US time as possible. So for example, I usually will go down, have my breakfast around 6 a.m., and then I'll sleep from about 7 to maybe 1 in the afternoon. So I could get a good 6 hours sleep in that range like that, because trying to adapt to their time zone, it's just not going to happen that quickly. You'd probably have to live there for a month in order to adapt to their time zone. So I do try to stick to a sleep schedule in that range when I'm in Saudi Arabia.
You know, and one thing I shared with you the other night is Emmanuel always, whenever I used to travel with him, always wanted me to, hey, Joseph, win in Rome, do as the Romans do. And yeah, we're not going to mention that Kopi Luwak story on the air tonight, but he always wanted to partake in the cultures where he was visiting, and that's one of the many things I always loved about Emmanuel. Now, have you actually participated in that? Well, heavy carbs at night and big protein breakfast in the UK. Have you actually participated in that ritual, so to speak?
Well, of course. I mean, you got to have a good English breakfast when you're in the UK. That's a must. Also, the fish and chips are also a must. There's nowhere better. They've got it down to a science over there. I don't think I've ever had a bad serving of fish and chips while in the UK. So
you mean not like Long John Silver's here, right?
Hey, I love Long John Silver's. Don't knock Long John Silver's. Are they still around?
Yeah, well, it depends on what side of town you live on.
My gosh.
Oh yeah, but you know, it's so beautiful and so fresh. But you know, every time I've been in the UK, right, either be it on the island or at Wales, or I've been invited to participate and try their blood pudding or their kidney pie, and I just can't do it. That just doesn't sound right to me, brother. Now, I'm sure they'd say the same thing about chorizo or barbacoa if they were visiting San Antonio, but, you know, I just couldn't do it. How about you, man?
Yeah, I haven't touched any of those things, but I do love the desserts that they have there, the puddings that they have, things like that. So I'm trying my very best to keep my desserts to a minimum. It's very easy to get carried away with those kind of foods while traveling.
Because they're all about protein in the morning and they're all about their sweets. Oh, I love it. I love the UK culture. I love how patriotic they are, and I love how much they love their sports.
They do.
And you're absolutely right. If you see Anthony Joshua, he can't walk anywhere in London without getting mobbed.
Oh no, he is a household name. The fans, you know, they love him, and it's going to be really amazing on September 21st to see the reception that he gets at Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, I tell you what, guys, and look, I will say this because I can still turn it off and turn it on, right? I'm not to the point where I've been doing it as long as Thomas, where obviously he's Thomas Treiber everywhere. and he's got that energy. He's got that. It's ingrained in his personality. But Alberto, to answer your question, every time I go live, I always have to do vocalises. And that's just my background, to make sure that I'm breathing okay, to make sure that I'm pronouncing everything properly. And there's certain things that I do to bring out certain qualities in my tone and my voice. Because if like Thomas, if I'm not getting enough rest or getting enough water, I start sounding like a rock DJ. You're listening to Kiss on KZAC or whatever. Like I start sounding like a rock DJ, and that's not always conducive to do a 5-hour commentary, right? And so there it is. But thank you for joining us, my friend. And look, I have a lot of respect for David Diamante. And I'm not gonna flash that next comment on the air, but I will say this: I have a lot of respect for Mark Chinook and David Diamante.
Yeah, they do a great job.
They do a great job. They're solid, and they've got the voices, they've got the work ethic, they've got the professional demeanor. So can't.
Well, and you know the thing is, Joe, and I've said this to other fight fans who come up to me and say thanks to me about other ring announcers. You know, look. Some people like vanilla ice cream. Some people like chocolate ice cream. That doesn't mean that vanilla ice cream's not good if somebody likes chocolate ice cream. Everybody's got a flavor that they like. Everybody's got a certain style that they like or a certain voice that they like. But when it comes down to it, they're all professionals or they would not be in the position they are in.
That's it. That's it. Amen, my friend. And look, I will say this, and I'm a bit biased because a lot like you, and Big Luke knows this, right? He's followed your career for a long time, and that's my brother, Big Luke from New York. Thank you for joining us, my friend.
All
And he
right.
says, "Yeah, I remember the early wrestling days." You know what? And that's why I'm a bit biased because you are the last of the Mohicans. You have that old school Howard Finkel type style. Now it's all your own, but you still have that style from almost a bygone better era of sports entertainment. Dare I say, the best era for sports entertainment. And have you noticed that you're the last of the Mohican? No one else carries that style any longer. And do you think that everyone is been influenced as of late by Bruce Buffer from UFC?
Well, I think that, and by the way, can you hear me? Because I had to take my headset off. My battery was running low.
You sound perfect, brother.
Okay, terrific. So, every ring announcer or even other announcers in sports, we all grew up listening to other announcers. So you're going to pick up maybe certain things that other announcers do and incorporate that into your style and your announcing. But the key thing is to have your own original style, though. You never want to go in there and sound like you're impersonating anyone.
Right. Yep.
And when I was growing up, of course, the great Howard Finkel, and I was a huge professional wrestling fan. So I'm not in there ever trying to impersonate Howard Finkel, but I think that there are certain things and certain inflections I use in my voice that sound Howard Finkel-ish, if you will. And
the Fink.
The Fink. So, but I think the key is to just go in there and try and do your own thing.
Absolutely. But I tell you what, and it is Thomas Treiber, but oh man, I miss that. I miss hearing that kind of delivery, that kind of style. And I can't pick out anyone else who is doing that at this time except you, Thomas.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment.
That is the highest compliment I can give you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Well, and I think that you mentioned Bruce Buffer, and mixed martial arts. It's a different sport. It's got a different feel to it. Yep. It's much more, I dare say, barbaric because they're inside of a cage. Yep. And I think the excitement that Bruce Buffer brings to the MMA world, and I think he has kind of set the standard, if you will, in MMA cage announcing. And I think that's why you've seen a lot of other announcers go the direction of having a more of a Bruce Buffer style to their announcing because he's who they were listening to growing up.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I was listening to the great Michael Buffer and Jimmy Lennon Jr. and Howard Finkel and Gary Michael Capetta from the NWA and WCW days. So those were the ring announcers that I listened to. And even though I wasn't trying to impersonate anyone, I think that style of ring announcer resonates with the way I approach it.
Exactly. And yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. You hit the nail right on the head, brother. But yes, yeah. So you sent me something that's been going viral on X lately, and you got nailed with a like a suplex or something, and it looked like your head crashes right down to the ring canvas when you were wrestling. And I'm like, how on earth did you not get seriously injured from that? But once again, it almost seems like a lifetime ago, right? Well, now, for people who aren't aware, tell them about your bodybuilding past and your wrestling past. And that's how you got introduced into this business.
Okay, well, as I said earlier, I started ring announcing at 17. I was a senior in high school, and I started doing boxing events. And then I started ring announcing professional wrestling events because independent pro wrestling was huge in the early 90s. And I lived in the Chicago area. So there was a lot of opportunity for me to ring announce professional wrestling. I was actually doing more pro wrestling than boxing in my first few years of ring announcing. Well, at that same time, I wanted to compete in bodybuilding as a teenager. I started lifting weights when I was about 14, 15 years old. And it was always a goal of mine to step on stage. It was just something I wanted to do. So at 19, I got the opportunity to compete in the 1992 Teenage Mr. Illinois bodybuilding competition. I was very lucky. I ended up winning the competition. And not long after that, because I was in the greatest shape of my life, a professional wrestler at one of the events I was ring announcing said, "You should try your hand at wrestling because of, the shape you're in." And I said, "I would love to give it a try." It was always in the back of my mind, but just didn't really think it would ever happen. Long story short, after I trained for several months, I got spotted by a WCW talent scout, World Championship Wrestling, the big leagues of professional wrestling. And they wanted to bring me to television and use me as what's called enhancement talent or a jobber. We're the guys that go in to make their stars look like stars. And I had the opportunity to wrestle the Hollywood Blondes, which consisted of Flying
Yep.
Brian Pillman and Stunning Steve Austin, who eventually became Stone Cold Steve Austin. And
Yep.
that match, you could find it on YouTube. It's the Hollywood Blondes versus jobber Tommy Tanna, Tanna. That was my wrestling name. I was Tommy Tanna in WCW.
Woo!
And so the other match that you're talking about, that was against Ravishing Rick Rude
Oh,
and another
geez.
wrestler named the Equalizer. Well, the Equalizer was not that experienced, and he was a big, burly guy, and he was a former football player, but they were giving him an opportunity to try, his hand in the wrestling business. Well, Rick Rude, in the footage you're speaking of, threw me to him, and what he was supposed to do is a choke slam. That's where you lift a guy straight up with your hand like you're choking them, and then you drop them flat on their back. Well, when I jumped up for the Equalizer, instead of lifting me straight up and dropping my body on my back, he shoved me while I was in the air with his hand. His hand hit my upper chest and throat area, and he
Ugh.
pushed me. He pushed me instead of lifting me straight up and then flat on my back. So what ends up happening is I end up basically doing like a backflip. And when I landed, my head did not clear the mat. So my head got pinned between the mat during the landing, and it looked brutal. And I'm glad to say I was not injured. I did have a sore neck for a few days, but that footage, I think there's like 500,000 views now on YouTube. A wrestling fan posted it this past Saturday, and I didn't even know about it. And then a former tag team partner of mine in WCW, his name is Scott D'Amore. He ended up having a lot of success in wrestling and managing. He's from Canada. He managed a group called Team Canada and TNA. And Scott sent me a text and said, "Oh my God, I'll never forget this." And I hit the link, and there it was. Somebody tweeted the footage of me taking that choke slam, landing on the back of my head, and it really, it looked pretty brutal. But I was not
Yeah.
injured.
Oh
I
my
was very
gosh.
lucky to not be injured.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And you had to be in spectacular shape to withstand that kind of, just that awkward landing and just that brutal punishment at the hands of the sexiest man. Rick Rude was such a character.
And a
God
great
rest his soul and
guy.
God bless him.
I was very fortunate to work with him, and God rest his soul. Gone too soon.
Yeah. Yep. And you know what? We just lost Sid Vicious. Oh
Yeah.
boy. Yeah. Jeez. I tell you what, they're just, and Thomas, is that one of the things, and I'm sure there are many reasons why you didn't just continue pursuing wrestling, but was it the lifestyle that surrounded that business
Well,
that
for
deterred
me,
you from it?
I never, Joe, I never stopped ring announcing. Even when I was doing the professional wrestling and I was Tommy Tana on one weekend, and then the next weekend I was Thomas Treiber boxing ring announcer. So I never stopped my ring announcing. And what really made me, my first love was announcing. That was my
Mhm.
first love. My first love was not being a wrestler. That was something I just had a unique opportunity to do. And then I had that opportunity to take my wrestling to another level and wrestle for World Championship Wrestling and WCW and, lace up my boots next to some of the biggest stars in wrestling. And that was a true honor. But I knew my long-term goal was to be a announcer. And the ring announcing work started to take off for me in the mid 90s, where I made my debut on ESPN in 1995. And then after a handful of shows on ESPN, I ended up getting the biggest break of my career. I was offered a 2-year contract by Dan Goosen of a company, and he was with a company
And the
called
man.
America Presents at the
America
time.
Presents back in the day. Yeah.
And they got a TV deal with Fox Sports, and they signed me to an exclusive contract. And at 24, I was traveling 2-3 times a month all over the country and performing on national television. So for me, it was like, well, I'm going to hang up the tights and just put on the tux from now on.
Yeah, you made a great
It,
decision, brother.
it
I
was a
tell you what.
lot less painful.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? While all of our heroes and from wrestling, those days of old, yeah, they're all leaving us way too
It's
soon. And well, fortunately, you're still here for us to be listening to you on this show tonight. But I
well,
tell
and
you
I'm
what,
honored to
God,
be with you on this show, Joe. Thank you so
oh,
much.
thank you, my friend. I appreciate that, brother. And you know what? The honor is ours. And yeah, all of our heroes wrestling, all of them are just gone way too soon. Even dare I say, the genius Lenny Poffo, the world's smartest man.
Oh my
And most
goodness.
most people don't realize that Lenny is Macho Man's brother,
That's
Randy
right.
Poffo. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. They from Downers Grove, Illinois. They lived I think they did their high school years in Downers Grove, Illinois, and then their family ventured out of Illinois at some point, but what great wrestlers were they? I mean, Macho Man Randy Savage became a
Yeah.
household name. Snap into a Slim Jim, yeah.
Yeah. Woo! You know, my favorite, if you could announce from Grenoble, France.
Oh my goodness.
Grenoble. And yeah, that's one of my favorite impressions. I love doing okay, then. I'm gonna pin you 1, 2, 3 in WrestleMania. I love that. I love
Wow.
and honestly, I think that's the greatest storyline in WWF. Yes, I said WWF. WWF history is the giant betrayal. When Andre
Oh yeah.
turns heel and he announces it right there on the Piper's Pit, and Hogan is just in shock. Can't
Oh yeah.
believe it. And that set up the big festivities at WrestleMania 2 and 3. Or was it 3 and
WrestleMania 3.
4?
Yep.
3, yep,
WrestleMania
3
3
and
was
4. That's right.
Yep, that was the big Hogan Andre WrestleMania 3 showdown in
Oh,
Michigan. And what an amazing night that was. And that was the time that I turned into the biggest wrestling fan because I was only around 12, 13 years old at that
oh,
time.
so was
So,
I, brother. So was I. Yep. And then the fourth, the rematch, the tournament. Oh, in Trump Plaza, Jess, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And there was nothing better than Gorilla and Jesse the Body calling the action.
one of my
Yeah.
favorite teams, broadcast teams,
Yep.
Bobby Heenan, he could have been a stand-up comic. I mean, he was
Oh,
up
he
there
was the
with
best.
he
Yep.
was up there with Don Rickles. I got to meet Bobby Heenan one time. It was at the Betty Boop Bar in Las Vegas. I was there for a WCW pay-per-view. I wasn't part of the show, but I just happened to be there that night. And I saw Bobby standing there at the bar area. He was with his wife. And I said, oh my goodness, I got to go say hi to Bobby Heenan. I went over and I told him I was from Indiana, where he had lived growing up as well. And I said, Bobby, what advice would you give me? I'm a ring announcer. for boxing, and
Yeah.
I'm traveling. I said, what advice would you give me? He goes, always sit in the back of the plane. And I said, why? I said, Mr. Heenan, why would I sit in the back of the plane? He goes, have you ever seen a plane back into a mountain?
Woo! Oh, vintage brain. And I tell you
Oh,
what, yeah, and just like Rickles, yeah, he didn't discriminate. He roasted everybody.
oh, he was great. He
Yeah,
was great.
yeah, he was the very best. And yeah, I think after Jesse the Body quit and he went on to acting, yeah, I think Gorilla versus Bobby, that was the Summerall and Madden of wrestling.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so sad that they're both gone, but
I
I
know.
still love watching old wrestling on YouTube and reliving some of those great years of wrestling.
Brian, will you stop?
Oh my goodness. You
I
are the man of 1,000 voices, my friend. You are.
I tell you what, brother. Yeah, thank you, my friend. And look. We're running out of time, Thomas. So let's finish addressing some of these greetings and questions from our dear friends, our extended family in the chat. And a gentleman who's going to be there and was there this past Saturday in San Antonio. And I had the good fortune of sharing the mic with him. He helped us do commentary and he did it on the fly with no preparation. And he really flexed his muscle, showing us his professionalism and knowledge of the business. And that's my brother, J.R. Bell from the Boxing Source. Great job, my friend. And we look forward to flying you back in on November 23rd for the next one, my brother. And he says, yep, I'll be there at Wembley covering it for the Boxing Source. Yes, sir.
Please say hello. Please say hello.
Indeed. There it is, brother. He goes, but not until the weigh-in. But hey, look, and I will say this. One thing I love about JR, he tries the delicacies and all of the he tries all of the delicacies of the region. So you gotta try some blood pudding and some kidney pie and tell me what all the rave is about. And is that truly a hangover helper?
Well, I don't really drink, but I will give that a try.
Yeah, and I tell you what, James will be there and he'll try it as well, I'm sure. But God bless you, James, and thank you for being a real pro on Saturday, man. And we look forward to working with you again, my friend. Great experience for me.
Have a great night,
and my brother Lance Meyer from St. Paul, Minnesota. Thank you for
all right, Minnesota, AWA country.
Oh boy, see, yeah, Thomas is old school. He knows all the regions, the old regions of wrestling. And we could devote an entire show just to the different regions and who were the attractions for those individual regions. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Vern Gagne country there.
Oh,
hello to Minnesota.
Vern. Yeah. And also my brother N Conquest too. Thank you for joining us. And yes, it's hard to refute. The UK fans are the very best in the world. Once again, no shame in once again, I love you guys. You guys are the best. But yes, a lot of it has to do with the fact that boxing is still a mainstream sport in the UK. That's right. And here to there from across the pond, I'm sure going to be there at Wembley as one of the spectators. Thank you for supporting Thomas Treiber at this time.
Thank you.
And he says, Alberto says, we need Thomas to do an introduction for Joe. Look, I'm no one to be introduced like that, but I introduce a lot of people, and I'm happy to do it. And it's a real joy for me to welcome on someone as esteemed as the Thomas Treiber. How do you like that?
I'm going to sleep good tonight, Joe. I appreciate all these kind words. Thank you.
Well, I tell you what, we love you, Thomas. And once again, you are, like it or not, brother, embrace it. Don't fight it. You're one of the elite now, my friend.
Well,
like
from your mouth to God's ears, I appreciate that.
No. You just get on one knee and get a nice smooch to Turkey Al-Sheikh, because that's who's doing it. That's it.
Well,
it's there's no refuting that, Thomas. You're working all of the big events.
Well, it is just truly an honor to be part of these great events and all these great fights, all these great matchups, all these 50-50 fights. And I just can't, put into words how exciting and honored I am to be a small part of it. And I just hope it lasts for a long time.
Oh, my brother, to now you say from your mouth to God's ears, man, because what a treat that would be for all of us. Team Batman Boxing, thank you for joining us always, and thank you for supporting Thomas on this day. Now, El Pinche, he's not a referee, he's a ring announcer, but his knowledge of boxing and the business, is extensive. So, Thomas, would you like to answer this question for you, my friend? What is his opinion on excessive holding, and why does it rarely get penalized? Well, everywhere else but San Antonio, Texas. How many how many 2-point deductions did referee Anthony De Los Santos dish out on this past Saturday night? Do you remember?
I think a couple of times, and that's a very,
Yeah.
very rare to see
Yep.
a 2-point deduction like that. And, no one likes to see a fight where there's excessive holding. And it really takes away from what fight fans really want to see. We want to see that toe-to-toe action, but we don't want to see excessive holding.
Yep. You know what? But it puts someone like the very good and very honest Anthony De Los Santos in a serious quandary, because in a 4-round fight, you don't want to be overtly officious, because when you have to step in and slam that gavel down for an intentional infraction, which is a 2-point deduction, in a 4-round contest, boy, that puts a fighter in the hole.
Wow.
You're right.
Yeah, that puts that fighter in a very difficult situation there in a 4-round fight. That's for sure.
Yeah. So it puts the referee in a very difficult situation. You have to take control if it's two guys that aren't, fighting gentlemanly, put it that way. And when someone starts acting that way, you have to take control of it. But you're putting him in a position where he's got 1 foot in the L column, right?
True.
So it's a serious quandary, and it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're a ref or a referee, isn't it?
It's a tough job. Judges and referees, I give them all the credit in the world, because it's a very difficult job. There's so much riding on the decisions you make.
And my brother Boxing Source, sign it if you're going to sign it, brother. You ripped my heart out today. You just broke the cross. Do you remember that when he's doing when they're signing right there in front of the fictitious Jack Tunney, and they're signing the contract for WrestleMania 3? I loved it. That was so amazing. And my brother James from the Boxing Source, a huge wrestling fan as well. Look, here's here it is. I love this. And Khalid, thank you for joining us, and thank you for supporting us. Thomas Treiber on this evening. Yep. He says, can you ask him if he loved announcing Nick the Wrecking Ball? That's a great, almost wrestling-esque nickname. But that was a very difficult fight, and it was his first title-winning effort, obviously. And it was a real question when you were announcing the judge's verdict, whether or not he was going to be victorious, because that was a fight, let's be honest, that could have easily gone either way. And because you work for Frank Warren and Queensberry Rules, and obviously you have no job in scoring the fight, but you have to be the bearer of bad or good news. How tough are those moments when everyone is sitting on the end of their seat and waiting for that drama to unfold and come out of your mouth there?
Well, it's certainly very exciting to be the one to announce the winner and hear the crowd react, and the fans at home. And I know a lot of people have actually approached me about a new world champion, Nick the Wrecking Ball.
Woo! Dude, there it is. That's the Eagles Hotel California right there, baby.
Right, man. But no, I mean, of course, working for Queensberry, it's always, because I do get to know our fighters on more of a personal level. It's always very nice to see them take their careers to another level. And of course, in his first attempt, Nick Ball, it was a draw. I think it was Vargas. He did not win the world title that night, but for him to win it just a few months later on another Riot season show, and to be the one to announce him, and all the credit in the world to Ford. What a great fighter, and I look forward to seeing him fight again real soon.
Fight of
But
the year
that
candidate
was
right there. Yep.
it was a lot of fun, and enjoy saying Nick's name. That's for certain. Thank you for thank you for your comment. Thank you.
I tell you what, Khalid's a great fight fan, and he loves his beloved boxing. And once again, I brag about our extended family all the time. But Big Luke met Double T at the Turning Stone in Verona, New York. Treated this schmuck like a long lost friend. Straight class, yes sir.
Well, hello. I hope to see you again soon. I love the Turning Stone. Great casino. Great memories there.
Indeed. I tell you what, and Alberto. Once again, Alberto, I told you, brother. And yeah, he can do it. Thomas can drop an introduction on a dime. Yes, sir. Tricks of the trade. And once again, when you hear it, you're like, oh, dude, that's him. It's so cool, man. Refugio, thank you for supporting Thomas on this day. Thomas Treiber is GOAT. Glad he replaced David Diamante on the matchup card. Look. I didn't say it, you did, but I second that sentiment, sir. And I'm not ashamed to say it. But I tell you what, David is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in this business.
A true professional, and he deserves to be working at the level he is. We've both been around a lot of years, and I'm always happy to see my fellow ring announcers have success, and that's the way it should be.
Indeed. That is the way it should be. James with another one. And his opponent from Death Valley in the voice of Howard Finkel. Wait a minute. Would you be able to do the honor, sir?
Ladies and gentlemen, the following contest is scheduled for one fall. Introducing The Undertaker.
Dude, that is amazing. That is spot on, Double T. Oh my gosh. Dude, that was great. Dude, you're going to have to call at least on our next event that we work together. You're going to have to at least use that voice for something on the undercard, brother, because that was perfect. That was so good, man. That was so good. But I tell you what, running out of time, guys. Look, here's an excellent question from Alberto, and I didn't even think about this. He says, does ring announcing in Denver or New Mexico become more challenging due to the elevation? Excellent question, sir.
I have worked extensively in New Mexico. I've also worked in Colorado. I can't honestly say that I ever felt any difference because of the elevation. So my answer would be no. I haven't felt affected by that. Great question, though.
Well, I will say this. I've never done and also I'm not in the shape that Thomas is in. So I can tell you from my end,
Joe, I'm in shape, Joe. I'm in shape. Bad shape.
Oh, stop it. Well, look, I'm in shape. Round is a shape, right? Yeah, there it is. But look, for me, and it's probably because the all of the chain smoking that I do. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. But Thomas, yeah, he doesn't skip a beat. He's outstanding. And once again, it doesn't matter the size of the show. It doesn't matter the quality of the PA. Thomas is a true professional and always brings it. Now, Alberto also says this, and I love all these questions, Alberto. Thank you, brother, and staying on with us for over an hour. And he says, Thomas, it's interesting that Queensberry hired an American as a ring announcer. Speaks to the quality of work Thomas produces. And you know what? How did that come about? And did you ever ask him why they didn't choose a fellow Brit?
Well, I always tell people there's no bigger honor as a ring announcer than to work in another country. The fact that someone would think enough of you to fly you over the Atlantic to be a ring announcer for their event, I've always taken that as the utmost biggest honor. When I got the phone call, they had just started a new series. And at the time we were on BT Sport. We've now transitioned to TNT Sports with new ownership in the UK. But they had just started a new series. They wanted to have a regular ring announcer. They wanted to have continuity. They wanted to have the same ring announcer every month instead of flip-flopping from one ring announcer to another. And thankfully, at that time, it worked for me. It worked for my schedule. And I was able to make that commitment. And it's been an absolutely unbelievable 7 years. I really had never met Frank Warren prior to working for him, but I did work with a few of his staff members, one of which is a gentleman named Andy Ailing. What a lot of people may not know is that in the early years of Showbox, Frank Warren was very involved with that series launching on the Showtime network. So I got to know a few of Frank's staff during that period of time, and I'm talking about 2001. I did the third ever Showbox event in Tacoma, Washington, and it led to being on the series for over 20 years. And I never imagined that Showbox would, have the success and launch so many world champions from that series, which they named the New Generation. So it was a place for up and coming fighters to be on national television and then eventually make it to that next level. So many fighters, I forget how many, ended up becoming world champions. So I did get to work with some of the Queensberry staff over 20 years ago. And I think when my name got mentioned, that was a big help.
Absolutely. And that, if my memory serves me correctly, that was the same night, the card that you mentioned, your first appearance on Showbox.
Yep.
That was the same night as Hopkins Trinidad, right? Post 9/11?
That is correct. Hopkins Trinidad was moved, I think maybe a week or two up because of 9/11. This was right after the 9/11 attack. In fact, I thought our show was going to get canceled because it was, late September. And I was like, oh boy, everything had shut down. Our world was in chaos. And I didn't know what was going to happen. But yes, that is correct. The same night I did my first Showboxing event. And then a quick story with that. Right after we finished our Showbox show, Joe, me, Nick Charles, and Steve Farhood
the late great Nick Charles
got into a rental car, and we drove to some guy's house that happened to live not far from the casino. And we were in this guy's living room. I'm in my tuxedo. Steve and Nick are in their suits, and we're sitting on this guy's couch. 20 minutes after signing off on Showtime, we were sitting in this guy's living room watching the Trinidad Hopkins fight, and the guy's wife was making us steaks. I'll never forget that wonderful experience with the great Nick Charles. And of course, Steve Farhood, what a great guy he is.
Oh, I tell you what, steaks and B-Hop Trinidad, it doesn't get any better than that. God bless America. Yeah. And you know what? What a great, it was just a great time for boxing. You know what? Maybe I'm just a little partial, but that's when I first got in the business around that time. And so, yeah, I'm a little sentimental when some things are like that brought up. And Sal, Blog Talk, thank you for joining us, brother, and supporting Thomas this day. Hey there, Thomas, fellow East Chicago Hamner here.
Hey, all right. Let's hear
Thank you, brother, for joining us. Yeah, Chi-Town Hustler. Woo! I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Northwest Indiana. That's where East Chicago and Hammond is located. It's just outside Chicago, and that's my old stomping grounds. And thanks for listening.
Oh, God bless you, man. And thank you, my friend, for supporting Thomas on this day. And my brother Champ Ross, good to see you, man. Says this is awesome. Great stuff. Yes, sir. Always a joy to visit with Thomas Treiber. And also my brother, the boxing scientist. Welcome to the show, sir. And thank you for always supporting War Week Boxing. And thank you for supporting Thomas on this day, my friend. And also my brother, Hawker Mustang. Thank you, brother, for joining us, sir. And also my brother, Simpin' in the Water. I don't know what that means, but I like it. Salute, Joseph and Thomas. Excellent show. Always a great time when visiting with Thomas. And we're about the end of the road. Thomas, did we leave anything out this evening? Is there anything that you'd like to promote coming up, or anything you'd like to announce or state to the our extended family in the chat.
Well, I just thank everyone who chimed in. I appreciate everyone who listened to us here tonight. It's an absolute honor for me to represent the sport of boxing as a ring announcer and to be part of all these great events. Thank you to everyone that's been watching the Riyadh season shows and all the Queensberry shows. And I think that, this year is going to finish off really strong with some great boxing. And I'm hearing some rumblings. I'm sworn to secrecy, but we have got some massive events and fights coming your way in 2025. So get ready, fight fans.
Woo! I tell you what, guys, it's going to be an excellent calendar coming up. And honestly, I can't wait for the big one because I'm sorry, for my money, fight of the year so far. And there have been some great ones. Virgil Ortiz, Sergey Bochuk, like we talked about, Nick Ball, Raymond Ford. But I'm sorry, that distinction goes to the first meeting between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. What a spectacle. What a heavyweight instant classic. Thomas, could you believe what you were seeing as you had the best seat in the house ringside?
I was right there ringside, and it was just such an exciting event and main event. Of course, how often are two fighters fighting for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world? So it was just a time that I will never forget in my life. And, it looked like Tyson was doing really well in those early rounds. And I thought, boy, if he keeps up this pace, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to pull off a decision win here. But it wasn't to be. He got caught, and it really changed the course of the fight. He ended up surviving, and it went the distance. But I'm really excited about December 21st, their rematch. What an incredible way to end the year. I mean, and that's, just shy of Christmas. And I couldn't think of a better way to end the year with boxing than with another big heavyweight showdown like Fury Usyk rematch.
Oh, guys, we are very fortunate that Turkey Al-Sheikh is staging all of these events. And we're very fortunate to have our brother Thomas being the ring announcer, along with Michael Buffer, official voice of Riyadh season, the incomparable Thomas Treiber. And look, I know you can't say anything. You've been sworn to secrecy. But does it just drop this hint, yay or nay? Okay. Does it have anything to do with Terrence Crawford?
Of course, we'll be seeing Terrence again. Of course we will. I'm not sitting in on the meetings with His Excellency or Frank or Eddie or anything like that. But I think the fight fans are going to be very pleased with the fights and matchups we're going to see even early into the year next year.
Well, I tell you what, Simpin has the beat. And thank you for joining us tonight, brother. And thank you for supporting Thomas. He says, the honor is ours, Thomas. We need him back on
anytime.
Well, I tell you what, before you leave, embark on your UK trek, please promise you'll come back and spend another hour with us, my friend.
I would love to. It's always a pleasure, and it's a lot of fun. And Joe, if I could throw a few compliments your way, you do a great job. You wear a lot of different hats, and you're a great man. Thank you so much.
God bless you, brother. Your words humbled me, man. And you know what? All glory and honor to our Almighty Father. And all glory and honor to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I tell you what, guys. And on that note, on behalf of the incomparable Double T, Thomas Treiber, I'm little old Joseph Heron, and you've been listening to War Week Boxing. Have a great evening, everybody.